Welcome to the Sleeping Barber Podcast.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. This is a really awesome conversation with Steve Phillips, the founder and Chief Innovation Officer at Zappi. We talked about a lot of things, including his shift from CEO to Innovation Officer, data is used as a service, a report they published on creative effectiveness, and how AI can improve customer insights for faster decision-making. I hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Sleeping Barber Podcast, a place for business leaders to get the best and most credible information on marketing, strategy, and innovation. Your hosts, Mark Binkley and Vasilis Douros, share their experiences as they gather insights from the world's leading experts. Now, on with the show.
And just before we get started with this episode, V and I would love for the show to be super valuable to you. So if you could rate the podcast, leave a review, leave some feedback about who you'd like to hear about or the topics that are really important to you, that'd be great. Welcome back to the Sleeping Barber. Today, we've got Steve Phillips here from Zappi. Steve, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Live from Cannes.
Oh, this is great. This is super exciting. We're going to get into a lot of things today because we're at Cannes. A lot of the conversations around creative effectiveness, creativity overall, but really interested to know a lot more about Zappi and how that helps organizations, businesses, how you've used it. So really excited to hear about your whole story with Zappi.
Sure, yeah. So I've been in consumer insight my whole career. Worked overseas for a long time. Worked in New York for a while, and then came back and started my first company about 20 years ago. And I've opened like 4 companies in consumer insight. But
that's not bad.
Yeah, not all of them successful. But then I had the idea, and this is about 10, 12 years ago, for Zappi. And the thing is, marketers and creators and innovators love consumer insight. They want to hear from consumers. They want to understand what they're thinking, what they're feeling, how they react to different things. There were a couple of things I didn't like about consumer insight. It took too long, cost too much money.
Right.
So I had the idea that I needed to automate the process of doing consumer insight. So what I set out to do was not like SurveyMonkey's great, but I wanted to be able to do great quality insight, but really fast and really inexpensively.
Right.
So set about trying to automate the industry, which is what we did. Took us about 3-4 years to get it to the point where you can test an idea, or test an innovation, get great results back, as if you were working with a full service agency,
right,
but through software. So utilizing AI right from the beginning. And we can turn them around in 4, 7, 8 hours, so you can start thinking about a problem in the morning, come test it, come back to it later on that day or the next day. So that's what I set out to do, is really create agility in the marketing process, enable people to make decisions, make better ads, make better products, empowered by consumer insight.
That's an interesting thing. Like, I think in our industry, we keep hearing about, even where I can right now, everyone's talking about consumer insights and how to better go about them. When thinking about in the context of like the problem you're trying to solve, is it the speed and the quality of insights to kind of our marketers with the right insight to chase then for, either can work, but at the end of the day, just selling or, it depends, product or service?
Yeah, I think, going back to what I said, I think people generally like the insight that they get.
Right.
Now, can we improve the insight? Yes, of course. We can always look at improving the way we ask questions, the type of data we get, the power of the storytelling behind the insight. But I don't think that was the fundamental problem we needed to solve.
Okay, fair.
Really, people, if you're imagine creating a new product and you've got some ideas, do you make it red? Do you make it blue? Do you make it this size, that size? Constantly making these decisions. But if those decisions are powered by consumer insight at the same time, not dictated by, because your factory may not be able to make it blue or red, but you want to know what consumers think.
Yeah.
Consumers should be part of your guide. You shouldn't do just exactly what they say now, because you want to lead as well. Yeah. So obviously it's an input, but you should want input throughout the decisions that you're making, the agile creation journey you're on, to make sure we were there for you.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that too. There's on a lot of the, I guess, literature on your website, and it revolves around the continuous feedback loop with consumers. And I think you hear it so often, especially when things go sideways in their business, where they go, okay, we got to get close to the customer, and companies that get close to the customer are going to win. How does this tool, or did that play a factor in the closeness or the proximity of the customer play a role in how you design the product?
Yeah. So what we wanted to do was really democratize consumer insight. So enable anyone in the business, anyone from marketing, to be able to So, I want to test an idea and I'll go out and do it straight away, not having to go through layers of people internally, but be able to reach out really quickly. So that was one of the key elements of the building the software, making it easy to use, making it available, but also still great quality. So still a sophisticated system. And you know what? I mean, every CEO of a big company says they want to be close to their consumer. The consumer's at the heart of the decision. But a lot of the time it isn't. And we're trying to make
really?
that. Yeah, well, exactly.
AI, it's become, I hate using this term, but it's become like the next big thing. But it happens so quickly. Everyone's on board. Obviously, anytime you have an opportunity to leverage these AI engines, it helps with access, ease of usability, etc. In your mind, what are those advantages, or maybe a few advantages, and what are some of the disadvantages of using like AI in AI-driven market research in our ecosystem?
Yeah, so we obviously have been using, as I mentioned, AI right from the beginning to write the reports, but the LLMs have made them significantly better. So it used to be an if that then this type model. Now the LLM's much more sophisticated. There's a lot of problems in terms of stopping them hallucinating, making sure they're focused on the data. Then we use AI in terms of a lot of the analytics, text analytics. So we use it throughout the process. I think AI is enormously useful when you're building out a data analysis product. And so it's enormously useful for us. I think the thing about the future is not just improving what we're currently doing, but using AI to do things we weren't doing before. So that's the exciting space that we're going into. And that includes, we have an entire agentic workflow. So now, if you think about the data we hold, we understand what people think about different advertising campaigns, what they think about products. So if you're a beer company and you want to launch a new beer brand in Texas, young men in Texas, the great thing is our platform, we understand young men. We understand what young men in Texas like, what sort of beer brands they like, what types of products they like, what types of advertising campaigns they like. So with an AI agent on top, or a series of agents on top, we can say to the LLM, look at that data about these people and design 20 beer brands that may appeal to them. We can then test them iteratively. We can optimize them again using AI. So the interesting thing for me is not just improvements in the existing approach to things, but creating new ideas, new business services on top of them.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Product market fit is such a hard thing. And I think, thinking about the continuous feedback loop and customer feedback and being close to the customer, all those things, it makes sense, but it's hard, especially when the data coming back in about the customers is so slow that the idea around iterating faster on product market fit and not having to maybe commit as much up front on the risk side of going to production and developing a whole line and, buying all the aluminum for the cans and all that kind of stuff, right? There's a whole bunch of things there that you could probably accelerate and simulate maybe.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
And now a short word from our sponsor.
This episode was sponsored by Quadical. Did I say that right? Quadical?
You did. Quadical. Yeah.
Quadical. Mark, what is it?
Well, V, I'm glad you asked. Quadical is my own company, actually. So, I'm the Sleeping Barber podcast co-host with you, but I also have my own company. And so I'm happy to sponsor the Sleeping Barber podcast.
Love that.
Because I give so much time to it. But Quadical is a fractional marketing leadership firm where we specialize in evidence-based marketing. And we do consulting work for companies typically between $30 to $300 million, and helping them navigate some of the challenges that people have, like, I know something's broken, but I'm not quite sure how to fix it, nor do I have the time to fix it.
Fair.
And so that's where we help out a lot of people.
Well, I'll speak for Mark as well, because you're wearing your Quadical hat right now. We appreciate your sponsorship of the Sleeping Barber podcast. And for all those that may be interested, we do have a whole bunch of sponsorship options. Always looking to bring on new sponsors. We have a lot of creative ideas that can really help across a global audience.
Thanks, V.
No, thank you, Quadical. We appreciate your business.
And now back to the show.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And if you think about, I remember when I first got into Insight, if you're talking about an innovation, we would go through a lot of rounds of research and a lot of rounds of design and development before you'd even touch the factory. because it was so expensive to change the factory setting to create a round box instead of a square box. And so it would be millions. So you'd have to get the decision right. So you'd have to do all these rounds of research. It would take years, basically to create a new product idea. Whereas now you've got much more iterative approach to manufacturing, as well as insight, as well as marketing. So it allows people to be much more agile in the way they approach innovation, particularly. It makes it a much more interesting, exciting space to be in, because you can make decisions every day. You can change things. You can be much more creative in the process. So I think it's a much more interesting process now.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and that naturally moves me to, well, we're in Cannes, creative festival, etc. So when we're thinking about that side of the coin, right? When we're thinking about creative effectiveness, we know how difficult that is, right? And the reality is, I don't know, Mark, you agree with this, but sometimes I would argue that term is somewhat not misused, but misunderstood.
Yeah.
Like what does creative effectiveness really mean? But I'd love to understand, do you have any examples on how Zappi has been able to help advertisers, companies kind of clear that barrier as well?
Yeah, so we work very closely with a number of large advertisers. Pepsi is a very good client of ours, and they say that integrating our system has made them 30% more effective, which is a big...
That's not small, yeah.
Yeah, that's really not small. I mean, we're
Only?
Yeah. We've also just done a Forrester total economic impact study where it shows that using our system gets a 243% ROI. So we're very much about the impact. But also, to me, it's not just the hard numbers creative effectiveness thing. It's also about the creative itself. So we're also always trying to understand how consumers think and feel about the creative they're seeing.
Right.
And give that feedback and those ideas to the creatives so that they can look at optimizing and playing with different elements within the advertising campaign. I think that way of fostering creativity, as well as looking at the numbers and the effectiveness, it's that combination of that sort of art and science that's really important.
Yeah. I wanted to also dig in a little bit. We were just in the preamble, we were talking about your roles changed from the CEO to CIO, the Chief Innovation Officer. And I can't, as we're talking about creativity and product market fit and thinking about iteration, like I can't help but think that shift, and I'm just curious more than anything, that shift has allowed you to be more creative in your own role and like thinking about the possibility as part of the product instead of maybe just the financial operational organization, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I founded the company and was CEO, obviously, but I got to the point where we'd grown quite a bit. We're a reasonable sized company, and the operational side, I hate to say it, doesn't really interest me. And my head keeps on going to product and innovation and the exciting things I want to do with AI. Yeah. And it got to the point where I just wasn't the right person in that job, I think. Yeah. So, and we've got investors, and we were chatting to them, and they advised us to bring in a really great, strong operational CEO, and we've got this great guy. And I moved to Chief Innovation Officer. I said very clearly up front, I'm having no one reporting to me. I'm not doing any reviews. I'm not doing any HR. That's all out of my control now. And I work very closely with our CPO, who's wonderful. And we're just focused on where is the product going to be in the next 6 months, 18 months. I'm not sure you can talk 3 years anymore. It's just too quick. But yeah, so it's great. It's great. It's really fun.
So what are some of the exciting things, if you can share, about the platform, things that are, some things that you're evolving to or things that you're really excited about?
Yeah, so one of the things I talk about with our board, we're a SaaS company, but I want us to move to being a DaaS company. So data as a service. We're building our own underlying data asset, and the ability to pipe that into different services, different places. Meta recently talked about creating advertising campaigns based off their data. Yeah. The problem with that is that their data is really sort of click-through viewability metrics, and brands want to have people clicking through and viewing, but they're really also worried about what's the impact on their brand. Right. So you could have a shocking image and people will look at it. Doesn't mean it's a good thing for your brand.
Right. Yeah.
What we can do with our data is supply the branding metrics, so you can optimize not only effectiveness in terms of click-through, but effectiveness in terms of long-term brand power. So I'd really like to see us working with platforms like that to ingest that data so they can really, marketers can make sure their brand is preserved and grows rather than is under threat by simple click-through metrics.
There was a report that you guys shared with us on the creative effectiveness. There's a lot of really, we won't go into all the details, but there's a lot of really great stuff in there. And it was just as reflecting as you were saying that. We were at a talk with Grace Kite and Tom Roach. They were talking about brands being built with a lot of little experiments now, and more fragmented media means more content. And so you've got now hundreds of assets instead of one giant TV ad. And so, you know, the idea of like, if you make a bit of a left turn, you start going off course really quickly if you're producing thousands of assets for campaigns. So what about the creative effectiveness report? Can you talk a little bit about that in general?
Yeah, sure. So we as I mentioned, we developed it talking to a lot of consumers, understanding how they react to advertising. And we worked with VaynerMedia, who have been a great partner through this, really to help get their insight and understanding about how media works and put that into the report so that we can help people not only understand where consumers are going, but also where the media landscape is and how they can most effectively create advertising campaigns.
From the creative effectiveness report, is there some principles there that you are looking at to help inform the data as a strategy component when you're getting to content at scale?
We interviewed 1.6 million people, about 4,000 ads, and we've compiled this look really at the overarching effectiveness. And not surprisingly, if you've been in the marketing space, you know what the most effective thing is, which is emotion. You have to create emotion. You have to get that people feeling something about your brand, not just chucking a celebrity on, which might help, but it might help their brand more than yours. And so, again, that underlines the point that we were saying about creative effectiveness. It is not about just click-throughs. It is not just about views, because those views may be the wrong emotion, the emotion that you don't want associated with your brand. And so it's understanding the emotional impact of each of your pieces of communication. Are they holistic? Do they say one thing, or are they maximized for different things in different spaces, which is just going to confuse people about your brand? So really taking that holistic, connected insights perspective, which is what we're really trying to help with.
So if you had to do an elevator pitch on Zappi, what would that sound like?
We'll improve your creative effectiveness by 30%.
That's perfect.
No, it's really about getting a holistic understanding of your consumer across advertising, across product, across brand, and being able to pull those things together to really take a much more strategic, effective, I think, approach to developing new ideas, new brands, new comms, new products.
That's awesome. Yeah, this has been super interesting. Thanks for joining us, Steve. We really appreciate all the time you gave us. And how can people find out more about you and Zappi and the kinds of work you're doing?
Obviously, LinkedIn, Steve Phillips, but also Zappi.io. And have a look. Hit me up on LinkedIn. That would be great. Very, very open to having conversations.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it, guys. This is lovely.
If you like this show, please leave a review. And even if you didn't, we'd love to make this show better, and your feedback will help us do that.